Hello and welcome to Veg Around the World with me, Meenakshi Garodia, where I believe in simple recipes, authentic taste. In this show, we explore one country at a time. We explore it through its vegetarian cuisine. I have a firm belief that vegetarian food is tasty, you just need to know how to make it. And today, a lot of people are trying vegetarian food, so it's very exciting. Today, the country we're exploring is Mexico. Now, everybody knows about Mexico, right? And it's such a rich country. It's full of all these colors, these tastes. Now, the Mexican food, a lot of it is based from the Mesoamerican times. And the things that are included there are like corn, cocoa. Chocolate actually comes from Mesoamerica. Chili and beans. That's the staple of Mexican food. Of course, it was very influenced by the Spanish invasion in around 1500. Where the things that were introduced were three very big items which you find in Mexican food all the time now. That was dairy, flour, and meats. Now, while these are still part of Mexican food, it is actually the basis of Mexican food is still corn and beans and chili. So I'm using that as a lot of the basis of what I'm making today. I'm going to start with a lot of small plates, 3 different appetizers, because personally when I'm giving a dinner or I'm having a party, I like to have a lot of small appetizers which people can pick at, and then I have a main dish, and then I have dessert and something to go along with it. What we're going to make today is corn salsa. This is corn and black bean salsa, again, very basic Mexican. I'm going to accompany that with guacamole. Now, guacamole is something which is so delicious, but somehow everybody thinks it's a little difficult to make. It's really not. You just need the ingredients. I mean, when you're cooking anything, you need to prep a bit. But once you've prepped, you'll see how easy it is to make it. And the last is I'm giving a little twist to corn. This is your basic corn. You can either boil it, steam it, or I like to roast it. If I have a fire, I just rotate it right on the fire. Otherwise, I'm just going to broil it today. And I'm going to put a garlic mayo on it with a little cheese on top. And what I'm going to do with the corn salsa and the guacamole is I'm going to show you how to make layered dips. This is going to be a 4-layer dip. You can of course make it many more layered as you want. Our main dish is going to be cheese enchiladas with mole sauce. Now, mole sauce is this very rich sauce which has onions, garlic, tomato, and the secret ingredient is chocolate. And this is unsweetened chocolate. Now, this is really, I think it's a sort of acquired taste. So I'm going to give you a recipe with chocolate and a recipe without chocolate in case you don't feel quite as adventurous. It does have a little sugar in it because typically, even though Mexicans never had chocolate with sugar, the word chocolate actually derives from a word which means bitter. But the idea of putting milk and sugar in chocolate is very European. It's not at all Mexican. So when they use chocolate, it's always unsweetened. But in my mole sauce, I'm going to put a little sugar just to round it off. And the dessert is going to be churros. I don't know if you've ever tried churros, but it is so tasty. Again, the concept, of using fried flour and sweetening it, it's prevalent world over, but it never gets old and it never gets untasty. It's delicious, and I'm going to have a chocolate dipping sauce with that. For drinking, we're going to make a strawberry water. Now, typically, a lot of margaritas, a lot of fruity drinks are very Mexican. The strawberry water actually typically it takes a very long time to make, and I'll describe it more later. But I have a really easy shortcut, and nobody will guess that you've used the shortcut, and it tastes tasty. So let's get started. So I'm going to start off with the salsa and the guacamole. So for the corn salsa, you can actually use fresh corn or a can. I'm just going to go ahead and use a can because, cutting the corn, grilling it. If you use fresh corn, you need to cook it a little bit more. You can't just use it. Like when it's a canned corn, you can eat it straight from the can. You don't need to cook it further. It's soft enough. But if you have corn which is fresh, you need to either cook it a little bit, you can put it in the oven for a bit, whatever you want. So go ahead and put 1 can in. Put in around half a can of black bean. Now I'm again using a can, but with any can you must make sure, especially beans, you should wash it out really well. In fact, if you can soak it in water for a bit, it takes away all the extra sodium and makes it really healthy. There have been these studies done about how it becomes so much healthier. Then we're going to add some onions. We're going to add maybe half a cup of onions. Actually, I like onions in my, so this is slightly more than half a cup. And you can or cannot add tomato. Now when you're adding tomato in this, it's important to de-seed it because the seeds won't quite match this texture. So I have de-seeded and cut it. I'm going to put in around just slightly less than half a cup, just for a little color and flavor. The secret ingredients to a corn salsa is actually jalapeno. So you just buy a jalapeno from the market, cut it into 4, de-seed it. Be careful not to get it all over your fingers, your eyes will burn later otherwise. So add a good amount, don't be shy, because once it's de-seeded, it's not that hot. We're going to put some fresh cilantro, so just take a bunch, you can just pluck it, give it a quick chop. Try to get rid of the stems. We're going to add some salt, of course. Maybe like this much salt, a teaspoon. You can always add salt later. It's important not to add too much. Too little is okay. And then sugar. Salsa needs a little bit of sugar. So I'm going to put in actually more like 1.5 teaspoons of sugar. And lemon juice is the last ingredient. So you cut it. So I don't know if you know this trick, but you take a lemon and you roll it. When you roll it without cutting it, the juice gets all out and you can feel the texture changes. And when you're going to juice it later, you get more juice and it's easier to juice. And I like to buy the seedless ones because, I mean, whatever you do, the seeds are no fun. I'm going to put a whole lemon. And then you just whip it up. This is perfect for like a barbecue or just at home. Now, if you want to use this as a basis of a quesadilla, you should go ahead and do that. Take 2 corn tortillas, put some cheese, grill it down, all set. I'm just going to taste it to make sure that you know. This is really good. I want it a little more spicy, so I'm going to add a little more jalapeno to it. It's not spicy enough for me. And trust me, this jalapeno is really not hot. I know it seems like jalapeno, oh my god, I don't like spicy, but it works. A little more salt. Perfect. And this is all set. So we're going to set this aside and we're going to make the guacamole. The most important thing to make a good guacamole is actually a good ripe avocado. Now, you know an avocado is ripe when you touch it and it just has a little bit of give to it and it feels a little bit soft. If it feels hard, you know, it's not done. So you just slice it open. There, look at this, this is perfect. If your avocado is more like this color, this green, it's not done. If it's this color, it's done. And if you leave it a little bit more, you can see it's becoming black out here. That means it's overdone. You can just cut these black portions out and you just peel it like this. You can peel an avocado. I don't know if you've ever tried that. It's a bit messy, but it's not so bad. If you peel it, the other thing you can do is you can actually check to make sure that it's not going bad, and this one's not. Now the trick to get an avocado seed out is you just sort of put your knife in it, it comes right out. It's easy. So I'm just going to seed 2 or 3 avocados and I'm going to be right back. Now as soon as you have avocados, you need to put a little vinegar or lemon in it. I'm just going to go ahead with lemon, because if you don't, it will become black. If you want your avocado to keep that nice color, this nice green color, just coat it with lemon. I'm going to go ahead and add the whole thing because I like my guacamole a little sour. Then I'm going to add all the spices for this. The secret to good guacamole is cumin powder. So you just take some, around a teaspoon. We're going to take salt, a teaspoon. We're going to take some cayenne chili. We're also going to add garlic and onion, but we're going to do that later. So take a potato masher and go for it. So before you add any of the other vegetables, it's good to have a go with your avocado with this masher. So the avocado portion gets really soft and well done. I'm going to give it one more go. We're going to go ahead and add onions, tomatoes, around a cup of onions and half a cup of tomatoes. You can, just eyeball it. It's just a little bit. This is around half a big onion and a quarter cup tomato. And we're going to put some garlic, minced garlic. We're going to put around a teaspoon. We're also going to put some chopped cilantro. Again, similar things, but your salsa and your guacamole taste nothing like each other, despite it having similar spices, some of them. And then we're just going to give it a good stir. If you like your guacamole with less tomatoes and less onions, you should put less. I personally like it like this. I like a little bite to it. Perfect. It's really good. So now that we have our guacamole ready and our salsa ready, I'm going to show you this really easy trick to make a 4-layer dip. So what you need to do is get yourself a nice bowl in which you can surround it by chips. And this is like a small cake pan. So I'm going to remove the base. I'm going to close it. I'm going to put it here. First I'm going to scoop some. The heaviest thing goes on the bottom. So I'm going to scoop some guacamole. I'm going to top that with some salsa. And press down a bit. Don't be shy about pressing down, because once you remove it, you want it to keep standing, and that won't happen if it's loosely packed. We're going to top that with a little bit of sour cream. Give a good dollop. Don't be shy. This is for a party. People can afford the calories. Make sure you're not pressing down hard, because you don't want the corn to get stuck to it. And we're going to leave it like this. We're going to take this off. So you hold it, you open up your cake pan, and you gently slide it off. There. Doesn't that look beautiful? And we're going to top that off with some Mexican cheese. It's just a box of shredded Mexican cheese. And we're going to surround this with some nachos, which I have right here. You can buy it from the shop, or you can just buy it from your local Mexican place, or wherever you like. You can even make some at home, which I do not recommend, because again, way too much work. You have different colored nachos. I've just got this color, but I personally find the red ones very pretty too. Okay, this is all set. The other thing I'm doing for an appetizer, as I said, was a little twist to the corn. So you just buy corn, make sure it's fresh. Now you check corn is fresh. If you look at the grains, they shouldn't look shriveled. If they're shriveled, that means it's been there for a while. Get the hair off. I'm just going to do 2 right now. So I'm just going to open this out. Chop it. Again, you need a sharp knife for this. You need to put your back into it. And that still doesn't work sometimes. And it does sometimes. Yeah. I'm going to put this on a baking tray. And put it into broil. What we're going to be doing with this is actually we're going to make a little garlic mayo for this. So I'm just going to clean up and get the ingredients for the garlic mayo and be right back. So for the garlic mayo, you just buy a jar of whatever mayo you want. You can make it at home. I just go ahead with this, it's okay. You take a good scoop of it, maybe like 2 tablespoons. Take around 1 teaspoon minced garlic and around half a teaspoon of salt, not too much, and a little bit of red chili powder, maybe a 1/4 spoon, not too much again because you don't want it too hot. And you mix it up. So when our corn is broiled, it's very simple. What we're going to do is we're going to brush this. We're going to put it nicely all over the corn, and then we're going to sprinkle it with a little bit of feta cheese. Actually, the Mexican cheese is different from feta cheese, but I just use feta because it's more easily available and I like the flavor better. Okay, so this is great. This is done. For our next dish, what we're going to be making is the mole sauce for the enchiladas. Now for enchiladas are really easy. All you do is you take a bunch of corn tortillas, and you fill the corn tortillas with whatever filling you want. Today I'm going to do cheese, but you could as easily do cheese and vegetables, and you roll it up and you put it in a big dish. The ingredients of the mole sauce are garlic, onions. You can put tomatoes or tomato paste. I'm going to go ahead and put these tomatoes instead of using tomato paste, but I sometimes use tomato paste, just depends upon what I feel like doing. It's going to have a little bit of salt, a little bit of cumin, a little bit of jalapeno. It's going to have unsweetened cocoa powder. And once I put in the unsweetened cocoa powder, I add maybe like a tablespoon of sugar just to round it off. So let's get started with that. I'm putting this on high, a little bit of oil, maybe a tablespoon. While this is heating, I'm going to get the other ingredients together. This oil is nice and heated, so I'm going to go ahead and add onions to it. I like my sauces really rich. Now I'm going to tell you the sauce, and if you want, the only thing you leave out is the cocoa powder, and it's a really rich tomato-based sauce. But if you want, you can add the cocoa powder, which I'm going to, which is the traditional mole sauce. I love the sizzle with the onions. So typically, now again, I'm giving you a shortcut for this, but typically mole sauce is sometimes cooked for a whole day at a time. Now mole sauce in Mexico, the food is supposed to be very labor intensive. Like for festivals, you're supposed to be cooking for a few days. My favorite movie or book, actually I prefer the book to the movie, as with most books and most movies, My favorite movie about Mexican food is Like Water for Chocolate. It's this very traditional book where a woman's feelings and her passion for cooking are connected. I would definitely recommend reading that. This smells good already. I'm going to go ahead and add some spices. This is cooking pretty fast. Because I'm just doing this, I don't mind it on a really high. I'm going to add a good teaspoon of cumin. I'm going to add half a teaspoon of salt, not much. I'm going to add around a teaspoon of jalapenos. And a quarter spoon of cayenne. Mexican food is hot, so I'm going to be like I'm going to make it a bit hot. You can leave out the actual chilies when you're making it if you think it's going to be too hot for you. This smells good. I'm going to go ahead and add the tomatoes. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be blending it. So it doesn't matter that these things are like thinly or finely chopped. This smells good. We're going to let this cook for a minute. And while this is cooking, I'm going to get the ingredients together. The only thing really left after this are the enchiladas and the churros. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make the secret drink. So for that, we need boiling water. I'm going to keep an eye on this, but we're just waiting for this. Once it cooks a bit more, we're going to add the cocoa powder and we're going to add the broth. You need some vegetable broth and you need some peanut butter. Actually, mole is typically chocolate, onions, garlic and peanut butter. You put it all together and you let it cook. So what was really labor intensive about Mexican food was corn. Corn was typically eaten dried. So they took the corn, they dried it, and then with every day you were supposed to take that fresh corn, mash it in, make it into flour by hand, one person, each kitchen and by themselves, and then use that corn for various dishes. We luckily live in a different era. This smells good. So typically for the strawberry fruit, what you do is you cut the strawberries, you put sugar on it, you put water in it, boiling water, you let it sit for 4 hours, then you blend it together, you strain it, and then you put it on ice. I go and buy myself some really good strawberry preserve, and I add a good spoon of the strawberry preserve. I try to get the ones which don't have too much fruit in it, more like a preserve rather than with real fruit pieces. I add some hot water to it. I make sure my mole is not burning. Ooh, you should smell this. What's interesting is most of these ingredients are at home. I'm just going to make this medium. And we give this a good stir till all the preserve. You don't want it to be too sweet, just right. And this is a secret. You don't need to tell people this is how you made your strawberry water. You can just say, hey, I made strawberry water. You don't need to get into details of how you made it. Then you cut one lime and you add it to that. It's interesting. Any cuisine, if you start cooking it, you realize that a lot of the same things come again and again in different pots. That's because any traditional cuisine, you normally have 3 or 4 ingredients that they made lots of different things from. I think that's enough for me. So what's also interesting is when I grew up, suppose I want to taste this. I'm not just going to take this and like sip it and put it right back, because I mean, for us, the concept of putting something that's been in your mouth and touched your mouth for general consumption is not okay. So I mean, that's why you'll see me sometimes putting it in my hand. This is way not sweet enough, so we definitely need a lot more preserve, and it's not sour enough for me either, so I'm going to put a little more lemon juice in it also. This is, again, there's no really true measure to it. I've put in a good quarter cup already, quarter jar. There, it looks so pretty. This tastes nice. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to put this in the fridge, and we're going to let it cool down, and we're going to serve it over a cup of ice. So I'm just going to go put this in the fridge and be right back. So this looks nice and done. If you look at it, the onions are pink, the tomatoes have melted. I'm going to go ahead and add around 2 tablespoons of peanut butter to this. 1, 2. I'm also going to add some broth, just a little bit, not too much. And I'm going to add a tablespoon of sugar. Again, sugar is optional, it's not traditional, but I just like it better with sugar. I know a lot of people don't like mixing their flavors and they don't like sugar, but a lot of people use bittersweet chocolate for this. I don't. I'm just going to use regular unsweetened cocoa powder. And I'm going to use around 1 tablespoon. And that's it. Plain cocoa powder is kind of bitter, so you want to be careful about not adding too much. But just look at this rich color. And you know, even though it's not sweet, chocolate just looks beautiful. Now I'm going to let this bubble a bit. Bubble, bubble, toil and trouble. This really does look like a concoction. And can you imagine, like a long time ago, a whole day of these aromatic smells coming all over the house when some festival. The one thing I'm not making today, which is actually one of my favorite vegetarian Mexican things to have, are tamales. But they really take a lot of work. I haven't come up with a really shortcut yet. So I'm going to, while this is cooking, I'm going to start the only thing left for us now is the churros. For the churros, we're going to need, of course, to fry it. So I'm going to start the oil. I'm going to heat it. And while this oil is heating, I'll tell you the ingredients. So what's interesting is, for a churro, you obviously make a dough and you fry that dough. But you don't just add it, you need to heat the water, and that's to get the texture right. Now churros can be made much thicker, very thin. I personally don't make them too thick because I find that if it's too thick, sometimes, at least for me, the insides don't get cooked properly, and I personally like a little crunch to it. Churros can be chewy or not, depending on how you like it, but you can play around with the recipe a little bit to figure it out. So while this is boiling, let's get the ingredients together for the churro. So I'm just going to get all the ingredients together, clean up a little bit, and be right back. So I'm just going to give the mole a stir, make sure it's not sticking to the bottom. It's not, and it smells so aromatic. I'm just going to let this cook on a low, simmer it for a little bit, maybe like another 5 minutes, and then we're all set with this. Meanwhile, I'm going to start off the saucepan to make the dough for the churros. And we're going to go ahead and add a cup of hot water. To this cup, we're going to add a tablespoon of sugar. You could add slightly more, but this is good for me. A teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of salt, and a tablespoon of oil. The oil makes it a bit chewy, which a churro is supposed to be, and the sugar gives it flavor, of course, and it also helps it become browner, which is the color we want. Okay, while this is dissolved and is starting to boil, I'm going to let it start boiling. Meanwhile, I'm just going to taste this mole sauce just to make sure that it is exactly the same flavoring that I like. Of course, it's going to taste slightly different when I blend it, which I'm going to in a minute. Oh my god, this is really good. This is just perfect. It doesn't need anything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my handy dandy notebook. No, not notebook. I don't know if you've ever seen Blue's Clues, but this is my handy dandy hand blender, which I use for everything, for literally everything. So I'm just going to blend this and be right back. I'm going to let this keep going because this is a little thinner than even though it tastes perfect. While this is boiling, so I'm going to start adding the flour to it. Now typically you add a cup of flour, but you pretty much need to add enough flour so that it becomes really firm. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding with half a cup first before I mix it in nicely. And I'm actually going to take it off now. I'm going to take it off that. It can't be too liquidy because we are going to pipe it. We're going to pipe it into the boiling oil. And the way we pipe it, either through a Ziploc bag or a pastry bag. I happen to have a pastry bag, so I'm going to use that. Now if you look at this, you want to make sure that the flour is nicely blended. You need to keep working it till it is. I'm going to add a smidgen more water to it because it just needed it. And because it's hot, the water is sort of evaporating at the same time. It's easier to work in the knots if it's a little liquidy. If it's not, then it doesn't work. There. This is done. I'm going to let this cool for 5 minutes because it's a bit too hot to work with it right now. And meanwhile, it'll get a little harder at the same time, which makes it easier to pipe. Let me give my mole sauce a stir. That's very nice. So I'm going to go ahead, while waiting for the churro flour to set, I'm going to go ahead and assemble the enchilada dish. So what you do is you get any flat dish like this. Put a nice coat of mole sauce on the bottom. Put as much or as little as you like. Taste the sauce and then decide for you and your family or your guests. Keep this here. Now, rolling an enchilada is really easy. You take out a bunch. Try to take the ones which are not torn because they won't roll the best. And if they're all torn, then you try to keep going till you find one that's not torn. There. There. This one's not torn too much. I can work with it. You put in some cheese in the middle. You roll it up gently. And you put it down with the joint on that side. This is cracking up, but it doesn't really matter. I might use two tortillas at one go, just to, make sure that it stays nice and stable. I like a lot of cheese on this, so I'm going to go ahead and put a good amount of cheese. There. Then we're going to cover this with a little more of the sauce. Sprinkle some cheese on top. Make sure it's nice and covered. And we bake it. So this is like the perfect combination of Mesoamerican versus current American. And oh, our corn looks done. I'm just going to get some gloves and pull my corn out. This corn is just perfect. So you just want it a little bit brown, and you can actually steam it, you can boil it, whatever you want. But you take it. Yeah, I can deal with this. It's not too hot for me. Let me get this out of the way. So you take your garlic mayo and you put it nicely. Don't be shy about it. I'm going to make another piece. Now I like this really hot, but you can make it as, the red is purely because of chili. You should put in as much as you feel comfortable with, maybe none, because it's pretty flavorful without it too. And this is so easy, and who doesn't love corn? And then we're going to open some feta. Take some and just sprinkle some on top. Now this is simply just corn, right? But what a dish to serve. There, that looks so pretty. I'm going to be right back. So for the corn, I also like to add a little bit of lemon. I'm also going to slice some of this lemon for putting in the drink. I like to put it in the pitcher when I'm serving it. So just cut really thin slices. Again, the joys of cutting with a sharp knife. And I'm going to cut some strawberries to match. You can actually also put some mint leaves if you like, but I'm fine with that. I like to cut it like this, where you can see the typical shape of a strawberry. And I like to add this after the fruit is drink is already cool, because otherwise the strawberry will cook and become mushy, and I want it to be a little crisp. It's interesting, when I do normal life, I think of songs. So with the lemon, it's lemon tree is so pretty, lemon flower is so sweet, and with strawberries, it's like strawberries, cherries, and angels kissing spring. Okay, I'm just going to put a little, I'm going to leave this with the, on the side where people can put it themselves. And I think my strawberry drink is cool, so I'm going to go get the pitcher. I'm going to just stir this nicely to make sure all the sedimented sugar, basically, sugar or jam is there. I'm going to put in these before serving. This is nice and cool now. So it looks so pretty. You can also add in more ice, but I'm just going to add my ice to the glass. I'm going to pour it out. And this isn't supposed to be very sweet. This is just strawberry flavored water. And it's delicious. It's so refreshing, like on a hot summer's day. This is beautiful. I'm going to put this in. Now, the only thing left for us are the churros. Now, for the churros, we're going to make churros with chocolate dipping sauce. Now, I have a very, very easy recipe for dipping sauce. But for one of the things you have to make sure is that your bowl is not wet. So let me wipe it out. If you want to do chocolate, anything to do with chocolate, you cannot have any water around it. So make sure your hands are dry, make sure the bowl is dry, the spoon you use is dry. Now my recipe, as I believe in doing things simply, is really easy. All you do is take some semi-sweet hopefully it'll open for you, otherwise you find scissors and you open it with scissors like normal sane people. You take around half a cup of chocolate chips. You take some powdered sugar. And you take some heavy cream. And you microwave this. You microwave it for a minute, you stir it, and you're pretty much set. I'm going to microwave it and be right back. So if you just melt chocolate, it doesn't work as a dip, because the chocolate will, as soon as it cools down, it will become solid again. But if you add enough cream, it will stay quite liquidy. Now again, I prefer a hot chocolate sauce dipping, so I make this just before I serve it. There, that's good. Now I forgot to add a little bit of baking soda. So you need to add just a teeny tiny bit of baking soda to your, I'm just going to put it in and work it in. Ideally you should add it when it's in the water stage. Then you take one of these, the pastry, you can just take a Ziploc bag if you don't have this at home. You cut it open. As I said, I like it thin, so I'm using not a very thick one. This is quite hot, so you need to be a bit careful. There. You can do a little practice run right here. It's pretty hot, so be careful. To test whether your oil is hot enough or too hot, just take a little bit of that and drop it in. Okay, so this is a bit hot. I'm going to let it cool down a bit. The problem is if your oil is too hot, then it sort of almost burns. So I'm going to have to be very careful. I'm going to go ahead and make this. The first batch might be a bit burnt, but the second batch will be fine. You just make a nice round and you leave it. The restaurants try churros. Churros can pretty much be whatever shape you want them to be. I'm going to try to make sure that they don't stick to each other. There, see? This is the right color. I'm going to flip it. It's easy to flip. It's like a little bit like a snake. While this is being done, to toss it, what we're going to do is we're going to take a Ziploc bag. We're going to put some sugar in it. And we're going to put some cinnamon in it. Just a little cinnamon, not much, like a teaspoon. I'm going to shut it. This is done. And again, I said I do it thin because I like it. So take it out on this. Let's go ahead and make some more. Meanwhile, shut your Ziploc tight. Take out the excess oil. Take your knife Cut it into around 3 to 4 inches. This size is good. What am I going to do with this extra one? I just going to have to eat it. Perfect. So you take it, you put it inside the Ziploc. You shut it, you make sure there's a little air in it, and you toss it. That's a lot of fun. You take your plate, you have your dipping sauce in between. When you're frying, you need to keep an eye out. This looks perfect. And I want to take out these pieces and put them around the side. You can cut them to whatever shape you want. I'm trying to be nice to people and make really small pieces so that they don't overeat on them. It's difficult not to. I mean, this is so delicious. I guess I was a little bit too rigorous in shaking it up. It shook up a lot more. I'm just going to fill this and be right back. And I'm back. So let's put our churros here, and the only thing really missing for us are our enchiladas. Let's check on them. Now don't broil that, bake that. This looks perfectly done. It's a bit brown, but I personally like my food a bit brown. So let's go ahead and dish that out. I'm going to put it right next to this. I want to get my hand into it. There, perfect. Just a little sauce on the side. Perfect. And our dish is done. So our meal is complete. We have our appetizers, which is guacamole, salsa, layered into a 4-layer dip with tortillas. We have corn with garlic mayo and feta cheese, some enchiladas with mole sauce, and a fruit tea, and to top it off, everybody's favorite churros. Bon appetit, and keep in mind, it's easy to cook. Just try it and you'll find out how easy it is.